Hi, it's ReganCipher. If you're new here, welcome to my channel, and if you're a return visitor, welcome back. The channel features unboxings, reviews, ANC tests, core quality tests, and whilst I'm predominantly assessing Bluetooth TWS, I also look at a number of other audio products as well, such as speakers, IMs, etc. Everything that I review is self-funded, so I'm not at the behest of any vendors. There's no genders, no affiliate links. There's full text reviews over on Edifier, unboxings on Instagram, and I'm active in the earbuds subreddit. If you haven't already, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, whichever side they are. I may not earn anything from it, but it's always nice to know that you're watching and it's appreciated. We're revisiting core quality today. You may remember back at the end of 2021, my 28 TWS shootout. Since then, we've had a few decent releases, namely the OnePlus Buds Pro and the Sony LinkBuds. I decided to go back and give that test a refresh, combining the indoor and outdoor tests and added some simulated background noise into some of the front runners. Carry on watching if core quality is your primary concern when it comes to your TWS. When you're buying TWS and your primary concern is core quality, it's a real minefield. Higher prices don't necessarily reflect better performance, and some of the terminology is used almost interchangeably by vendors. Environmental noise reduction, active noise cancellation, CVC and ENC, they're not necessarily a barometer of performance, and it's very difficult for you as a consumer to work out what it all means and what's going to work best for you. Back towards the end of 2021, I did a test of a number of different TWS in a very noisy indoor environment. Just for testing purposes, this is how the native iPhone mic sounds that's in the phone without any earbuds connected. And then followed it up with an outdoor test of even more models. What we're aiming to do today is show how the buds perform in an outdoor environment on a very busy road next to a railway bridge with a lot of ambient sound. 28 different sets of TWS were put to the test in really blustery conditions, try and give us a steer on which earbud really was the king of calls. And whilst there were some surprises, generally the variance in performance didn't reflect the variance in price. And in some instances, the budget models performed better than some of the more expensive models. There's also that question of defining better. Some people will only use their buds in an indoor environment where it's quite quiet. So the important things to them are your voice sounding very natural and not over compressed. Whereas others will be using the buds on the go, maybe when they're on their daily commute. And the important thing for them is reducing those ambient sounds in their environment. So rather than giving a league table, I've tried to give an honest assessment of how I see them performing in different environments, which allows you to then make a decision based on your own specific use case. There have been a few new releases since then. I mentioned it already in the preamble, and I've tried to put them through tests as close as possible to the tests which I already mentioned previously. It's very difficult to keep replicating the dB level, so I've taken screenshots from the dB meter. Hopefully those metrics will allow for some level of objectivity. So we've got a noisy indoor environment, a play area, we've got a noisy outdoor environment commensurate with your daily commute, and in some instances I've also included some clips where you've got absolutely no background noise going on. What you would expect in a meeting room if you're on a Zoom call, for example, which I've given the designation near silence. There's also some clips with some simulated background noise, and you'll see those described as louder ambient sound. And just to reiterate, TWS are fine if it's picking up the odd phone call and making up the odd Zoom call, but if you want something for maybe streaming, recording podcasts, etc., ultimately there are no earbuds to date that will come anywhere close to the quality of a good USB mic. So if that's what brought you here, it's probably the time to tune out. But thanks again for tuning in. Apologies there's some duplication, but I really didn't want to have to get back out there and test all those buds again. It's a bank holiday weekend, it's nowhere near as noisy as when I did those tests, and as you can probably see behind me, I've got a lot of video editing to do. So the first one that we're testing, and we start with one of the big boys just as the car goes past, is the Samsung Galaxy Buds Live. These are about 2 years old now, but they've had frequent firmware updates
And they also included a hardware-based accelerometer in order to nullify some of those background sounds and improve the clarity of your voice. And that's what we're testing for today: the clarity, the legibility, and how the buds deal with any environmental ambient sounds, which we discuss in the preamble. That's the Samsung Galaxy Buds Live.
And one that we managed to test externally but not internally last time around, Samsung Galaxy Buds Live. This is with pretty much silence in the background. There's no ambient noise whatsoever. It's what you would expect on video conferencing or on a phone call in a very quiet room in an indoor environment. That's a Samsung Galaxy Buds Live. That's a Buds Live again an indoor environment with slightly louder background ambient noise. This is around something like 60 dBA. So this is more like if you're in a queue in a busy coffee shop or a corridor in a school, something like that. So I'm expecting it to be a little bit of bleed, although there is an accelerometer and generally the mic performance on this model was pretty good back when it was released. So I'm expecting it to perform reasonably well, but not quite as well as some of the more modern buds on the market today. That's the Samsung Galaxy Buds Live.
Our long-awaited donuts, the Sony LinkBuds. Very interested to hear how they perform with very stringent conditions, lots of rain, wind, and traffic. Certainly wasn't this bad when I tested them the first time around. That's the Sony LinkBuds. Okay, so testing the microphone on the Sony LinkBuds, and I've just been on something like 6 or 7 kilometer run. The weather is dreadful here in the UK. We've got storms of something like 30 miles an hour. Interestingly as well, despite their form factor and their design, no chance of the buds falling out, despite, as I said, it's around strenuously, and you can probably hear the wind coming through and see my hat nearly coming off. But really impressed with the LinkBuds. Very positive review on the buds for exercise and hopefully for call quality. But I guess, well, you can be the judge of that, and I'll certainly be the judge of it once I finish this recording and I listen back, because I don't think in any of the tests that I've done so far the weather has been this bad and the conditions have been so bad. So really interested to hear how it performs. None of the mic tests which I've done on any of the other 30 TWS have been in conditions this bad. So that's a little bit unfair. So there'll be more recordings to come and see how the Sony LinkBuds perform.
Testing the mic performance indoors, the Sony LinkBuds. They perform pretty well outdoors with very strong environmental noise reduction. So I'm interested to hear how they perform internally with no background noise whatsoever. It's a Sony LinkBuds. Now testing the mic on the Sony LinkBuds with simulated background noise being played, funnily enough, in the background. That's a Sony LinkBuds with simulated background noise.
Next up, it is one of my favorites right now, the OnePlus Buds Pro. They've got so many features. They're using a BES 2500 YP chip, and it's got multi-point connectivity from its latest firmware update. The sound quality is very good. And for calls, well, I don't know, because this is the first time that I've tested them outdoors. I got them pretty late to the party. So interested to hear how they sound in very blustery conditions, although it's more wind than traffic right now. And I'll wait for a few cars to come past before I press stop on the record button. But yeah, that's the OnePlus Buds Pro.
Okay, so it's the OnePlus Buds Pro again, this time with absolutely no background noise. This would be in your home office environment where you've got nobody else in the house, no kids making noise, no partner working somewhere in another room. This is pretty much silence. So this is how the OnePlus Buds Pro would perform in that environment. Testing the mic performance of the OnePlus Buds Pro with simulated background noise, taking it to sort of a busy coffee shop. The OnePlus Buds Pro
Is the Edifier Neobuds Pro. These haven't been on the market too long, but they feature some market-leading specifications, including 6 mics and some of the strongest active noise cancellation which I've tested so far. On the indoor tests, they perform really well, nullifying a lot of background noise and retaining the clarity and naturalness of your voice. It will be really interesting to hear how they perform on the outdoor tests. Edifier Neobuds Pro once again, but this time with silence. So if you're in a meeting room, on a Zoom call, doing a presentation, something like that, this is how your voice will sound with no compression going on because there's no ambient sound at all. That's the Edifier Neobuds Pro. Okay, so testing the Edifier Neobuds Pro home office environment or maybe a busy office because background noise is pretty loud.
That's Edifier Neobuds Pro. Hey, this is the Edifier Neobuds Pro. Very similar conditions, just probably slightly less adult chatter going on around me, but there's still quite loud music and lots of kids chatter. ANC effect is really weird, like it goes zoom, like you're in an aeroplane or something.
So the next set that we test are the Elevoc Clear. The Elevoc Clear's USP actually is their microphone performance. So their environmental noise reduction is pretty much market leading. They're amongst the best in the business, and a lot of organizations have adopted their technology in terms of the software within their own products, such as SoundPeats and Soundtronics. I've got loads of traffic going past now and rain coming down. So it will be a real acid test of how good the Elevoc are. I have done a video previously on how they perform both indoor and outdoor, but this is going to be another good stringent test for the Elevoc Clear. Once again, the Elevoc Clear, but with silence, no background noise whatsoever. From memory, when I tested them the first time around, they seem to compress your voice even when there's very little going on in the scene. And it's one negative to an otherwise faultless mic performance from these buds. Okay, so it's the Elevoc Clear. I think the volume has actually gone up from the previous tests, but this is how they would perform in a very busy environment where you've got people very rudely talking over you, or you're in a queue in a coffee shop. So again, another stringent test for the Elevoc Clear. The Huawei FreeBuds Pro are another which features 6 mics, and they've also got an echo cancellation chamber, a signal that TWS vendors were really starting to take call quality seriously. We haven't had too much background noise, so I'm waiting for a car to come past, and right on cue, there it is. So we'll hear how the Huawei FreeBuds Pro sound over the top of traffic and wind. And we're testing the Huawei FreeBuds Pro indoors with absolutely no background noise whatsoever. This is how it would be if you're working in your home office on a Zoom call or cell call, or you're in a meeting room or something like that. So no noise going on around you whatsoever. At least none that I can hear because active noise cancellation's on. That's Huawei FreeBuds Pro. This is at the loudest level, which is in the headings or footers, below. So this is how the FreeBuds Pro would perform in reasonably busy office. One of the most popular sets of earbuds on the market are the Jabra Elite 75T. Jabra recently released a refresh to this model. The mic performance when they were released was pretty good. It was amongst the best on the market. Even so, they're a little bit dated now, and I'm sure you'll see that when we compare them alongside some of the more modern buds on the market today. This is the previous gold standard for mic quality, the Jabra Elite 75T. In an indoor environment with quite a lot of chatter going on in the background. This is like what it would be in an office environment. Ever so slightly unfair on the models which I'm testing today. This is the SoundPeats Mini Pro. SoundPeats newest release has active noise cancellation and is within their budget range, I think just about. But in terms of features and what you're getting for the money, very good value. Although, if I remember rightly, because they're using the Qualcomm chip, it's using CVC noise reduction rather than the Elevoc AI, which they used with the original Mini, and suffers as a result. I think for indoors you get a good performance, but outdoors I'm guessing you can hear the splashes and the cars going past and the wind as well, which is very strong today, unfortunately, for these models. So that's the SoundPeats Mini Pro. It's ReganCipher tested the mic quality on the brand new SoundPeats Mini Pro. It's quite a busy morning here in Surrey, and we have a bunch of cars going past, pedestrians, rain, winds, quite blustery conditions. So it should be quite a testing environment for these buds, and it should be commensurate with what you would expect on your daily commute. Testing the mic quality on the SoundPeats Mini Pro in an indoor environment. There's a little bit of echo in here, but there's very little ambient noise other than some traffic going past the closed window. So this is a SoundPeats Mini Pro with some simulated background noise in an indoor environment. It's probably what you would expect to hear in a busy coffee shop or office environment where you've got a lot of desks which are close by. Hey, so we're testing the mic quality on SoundPeats, a relatively new release, the H2. As you can see, really nice looking buds using that silver and rose gold finish, which made the sonic look quite unique. We're strictly speaking just testing the mic here. I've got a mixture of a little bit of wind, we had a lot of traffic, pedestrians, some kids in front making some noise. Splashes are where you've had a little bit of rain overnight, kind of what you would expect on maybe your water train station if you're doing the daily commutes. So it's the SoundPeats H2 with zero ambient noise. It's absolute silence and commensurate with those tests which I did earlier with the other set of buds. Okay, so once again the SoundPeats H2, and this time it's with pretty loud ambient noise, similar to the loudest level that you've already seen or heard on the previous models. That's the SoundPeats H2. Next up, it's the SoundPeats H1, which were released to much fanfare about, I think it was the start of the year actually. They were the first dual armature driver TWS, possibly even the first on the market. The audio quality still remain one of my favourites today. But if I remember rightly, the mics were bottom of the list of priorities when they manufactured these buds. So not only does your voice not come through particularly clear, but it handles the external sound around you really badly as well. But hey, it's been a while, so this is a refresher. See how the H1 was. Testing the SoundPeats H1 in a silent indoor environment, similar to your home office when you've got nobody at home, something like that. Somewhere where you can talk freely without being disturbed. They have this button style form factor, which means that the voice mic is quite a distance from your mouth, and I'm just going to lift my hat very slightly just to see if that has any impact whatsoever, as the form factor means that the ambient mic would have been covered. So yeah, let's see how they perform. The SoundPeats H1. Okay, it's a SoundPeats H1 again with reasonably noisy ambient sound, something like standing in a queue in a shop, reasonably busy office. Notice the volume has just edged up ever so slightly, so that queue has just got busier. That is the SoundPeats H1. It's one of the most popular ANC buds on the market today, the One More Comfobuds Pro. Just like the Edifier Neobuds Pro, the Tronsmart Apollo Air, Huawei FreeBuds Pro, and Elevoc Clear, they feature 6 mics, which includes 2 different ambient mics in order to try and level off that environmental noise which is going on around you, and then elevate your own voice and give it a kind of natural whilst also amplified feel. They performed really well on the first test when we reviewed them back earlier in the year, but it has been a little while now, so I'm really interested to hear how they sound in comparison to some of the newer buds which have been released more recently. This is the One More Comfobuds Pro. Mask on just during the pandemic. This is how it would perform in probably a very busy office environment or when you're out in a shopping centre. The FIIL T1 Pro, or the Earfun 3 Pro, as I think they were called, are another set of earbuds which at the time performed really well, but have started to show their age a little bit. I remember reviewing the outdoor mic and thinking, wow, the microphones have come on leaps and bounds. But now, as I think you'll notice with a lot of the Aroa-based chipsets TWS, there's a heavy amount of compression which goes on in the background, and that bleeds into your voice. And not only does your voice sound a little bit thin, but it starts to lose a bit of legibility as well. So that's the FIIL T1 Pro. Okay, so under similar conditions, this is how the FIIL T1 Pro, or the Earfun Pro, performs in indoor environment, which I guess be the equivalent to a very busy office. There's slightly quieter music, but there's still quite a bit of chatter. There's kids' voices going on here in the background, and just so you can see the sort of environment that it is, without filming anyone's faces, it's busy. It's a climbing area, so yeah. And we've got a mask on because it's during the pandemic. So this is how the mic will perform, generally in ear. Button type rather than the stem type seems to struggle, but I've been proven wrong before, so let's see how it performs on the overall test. Next up, it's the Tronsmart Apollo Air. This is Tronsmart's premium stem-based model, which has 6 mics, just like the Elevoc, the Edifier, the Huawei FreeBuds Pro, and the One More Comfobuds Pro, and is another one of those releases that signal the vendor's realization that consumers are looking for good call quality. They're available in both black and white. I'm testing the white model today. That is the Tronsmart Apollo Air. Assessing the
Mic quality on the Tronsmart Apollo Air stroke Tronsmart Apollo Air Plus. This is with silence in the room, absolutely no ambient noise, so it's similar to working from home on your own with all windows closed and no ambient noise whatsoever. Tronsmart Apollo Air. Again, tested the Tronsmart Apollo Air with a fair bit of ambient noise going on in the scene, similar to being in a busy coffee shop or queue or office or something like that. So we're looking to see if this 6 mic array is effective at blotting out noises which are going on around you and amplifying your own voice so your calls are as effective as possible. That is the Tronsmart Apollo Air.
And saving my iPhone, it's the Boya BY84. One I omitted last time around because I simply couldn't find them because I just don't use them. They wear beautifully, the case is gorgeous, they have wireless charging, but the sound quality is absolutely dreadful on them. So I'm interested to hear how the mic is because I don't think I really put it to its paces on the original review. But it's another one to add to the list to get it over the 30. That's the Boya BY84.
Okay, so again, the Boya BY84 in an indoor environment with silence. There's no ambient sound at all. That's the Boya BY84. Again, this is the Boya BY84, but with louder ambient sound, so your busy coffee shop or office. Once again, that is the Boya BY84.
Omthing is a sub-brand of One More, and they released two models throughout 2020 and 2021, the Air 3 series. This is the newer model, the Air 3 2. It caught the eye with its active noise cancellation and its low cost. The mic performance on the Air 3 1, very good indoors, but not so good outdoors. The Qualcomm chip is used, so CVC noise reduction is essentially applied, but unless you get the mic positioning and use the right mics, then that CVC noise reduction counts for nothing. And that was the case certainly with the original Air 3 model. There was very little noise reduction going on at all. They're part of the test today, so you'll get the opportunity to witness it yourself. I'm expecting this model to be an improvement. That is the Omthing Air 3 2.
Testing the mic of the Omthing Air 3 2 with zero ambient noise, absolute silence. That's the Omthing Air 3 2. Testing the Omthing Air 3 2 in a reasonably busy ambient environment indoors. This is similar to if you're in a queue in a shop or in a reasonably busy office. That is the Omthing Air 3 2.
As promised, the original Omthing Air 3. The Air 3 are very low cost. They're a bit dated now, but at the time they were an excellent option, especially during the lockdowns where the majority of your calls were indoors. Your voice comes through quite natural. It's just as soon as you get any kind of background noise in the scene, it really does distort it and it's very difficult to make out exactly what you're saying. And there's a car coming past now, so you'll see exactly what I mean about that non-correlation between CVC and real-life noise reduction. That's the Omthing Air 3.
Testing the original Omthing Air 3. Although they are flashing, so maybe we're not. No, it definitely is working. It's the Omthing Air 3. I have no idea why they're flashing. Maybe it's because there's no audio playing, but it's not something which I've noticed previously. Omthing, sub-brand of One More, and this was their original release. If I remember rightly, indoor performance was pretty good, and that's what you're hearing right now, in an indoor environment with no ambient noise. I'm expecting my voice to come across quite clearly and with good tone. It's been a while since I tested them out, but that's what I remember anyway from first time around. Not sure what they're like with ambient noise, so we're going to introduce some simulated background noise in a second and see how it performs. Okay, so we've added that ambient background noise. It's the Omthing Air 3 Mark 1. Let's see how they're performing at compressing the noise which is going on around you. Therefore, commensurate of what you would expect in an office environment or something like that. You get the gist. It's every other test, which is marked as louder ambient sound, I think it was. That's the Omthing Air 3 Mark 1. This is a brand new release from Tronsmart, Onyx Prime. It's a dual armature hybrid driver earbud, and its shape is a little bit retro, a little bit 80s. Looks like a traditional Bluetooth headset. So let's hope the mic performs like a traditional Bluetooth headset, although I don't actually remember how those headsets sounded.
Probably not very good. Okay, this is the Tronsmart Onyx Prime in an indoor environment, quite noisy, with the mask on, obviously. There's quite a bit of kids noise here in the background. Ambient noise level is about 50 dBA. So I would expect, from having tested it before outdoors, that it's going to be quite muffled sound coming from the mic. It should still be quite natural. So we're testing the microphone performance on the brand new QCY T18, which supposedly have this Aptex HD calling, which I'm yet to see in any of the settings, and I don't even know if this device supports it. This is a similar environment. In fact, it's exactly the same environment as the other earbuds which I tested previously. I mean, exactly the same place. It's a bank holiday weekend, so there's a little bit less traffic. There's a couple of pedestrians coming past, quite a few cars coming past. The weather is typical English weather, really. A little bit rainy, a little bit windy, but it's nothing like the conditions when I took it out on the extreme test. So yeah, this is the QCY T18 on the outdoor test, and maybe I'll come back when it's raining on rainy days. You know. Testing the QCY T18 in an indoor environment with absolutely no background noise whatsoever. This is how it would sound in a quiet, secluded office or separate room where you've got no one else around you. It's QCY T18. QCY T18 with simulated background noise. This is similar to the level of noise you would expect in a reasonably busy office or corridor in school, something like that. I think it measured up at around 65 to 70 dBA within a sort of 5 meter range. So I'm interested to hear how this Approx HD calls, or whatever they call it, is compressing the sounds around you and how your voice sounds accordingly. That is the QCY T18. Many QCY models that I'll be testing. HT03. These are ultra budget. You can pick them up on AliExpress for something like 22 quid. And I found that the performance is surprisingly really good. They don't advertise any specific noise reduction in the mics, but the mic quality on the indoor tests was good. It performed certainly well enough to take and make calls. Once again, the QCY HT03. Okay, so this is an indoor test of the HT03. This is just quite a bit of chatter going on in the background here. This is what I would expect it to sound like in an office environment, and also I've got a mask on. See how it performs during the pandemic. And in true British weather style, we've gone from searing rain to what appears to be blistering sunshine, but trust me, it isn't. I'm light up to the max. This is QCY's new gaming bud, the G1. Very comfortable. I reviewed these as a world exclusive a few weeks ago. Their mic performance outdoors, not particularly great, and you would expect that from gaming buds, where the focus really is on as low latency as possible and good indoor mic performance. Poor G1 have had to endure quite a few cars coming past, so really testing conditions for them. Interested to hear how they perform. That's the QCY G1. Okay, it's the QCY G1 again with heavy ambient noise, similar to a busy classroom or office or shop. That is the QCY G1. It's one I did an external test on the other day, and it performed very similar to a lot of the other recent QCY buds, so probably it's reflective of how the T13, which unfortunately the battery is dead for. So we won't be testing today. It's probably the busiest that I've tested it. There's lots of kids' noise, there's adult noise, there's lots of voices. My daughter just suddenly appearing in the background. And yeah, overall, I'm going to test the dB level later, but it's quite a lot. Next up, it's another model from QCY, the T13. Very popular model on the market right now due to their form factor, performance, and price. The mic test, which I did first time around yesterday, and I dropped it halfway through, it performed very well. You've got some decent noise reduction around you. But QCY don't advertise any jargon. There's no DBC noise reduction or interchangeable use of noise cancellation or anything like that. They're just budget buds which perform really well, and it's again seems to be the case with the T13.
Okay, again, the QCY T13 with practically silence. There's nothing going on in the scene here. This is what you would expect if you're in a very quiet room making a Zoom call or a cell call, and you've got nobody else in the house, nobody else in the office. We're testing for naturalness here. How natural does your voice sound? How compressed does it sound? Interested to hear how the QCY T13 performs. Testing the very popular QCY T13 with quite hefty ambient background noise going on, similar to what you would expect in a queue in a coffee shop, reasonably quiet office, stand outside your classroom in a corridor, something like that. So yeah, this is how the QCY T13 would sound when you've got other people talking around you and you're trying to make a phone call.
I must really love for SoundPeats Mini to give them another opportunity, because I've tested them a couple of times over the last few days and they haven't performed particularly well. This model from SoundPeats does feature the Elevoc AI algorithm, which is the software element rather than the hardware element, which Elevoc use in their Clear. It's designed to nullify some of those background noises a little bit better than the standard CDC or MEMS array, which you tend to see in most traditional sets of budget earbuds. But what I found is that it nullifies it a little bit too much, and it takes a little while to settle down as well. So early on in your calls, you'll tend to be quite muffled, and then it will improve over time. It's funny, this is the SoundPeats model that I can always find, because for some reason they named it in lowercase, not in uppercase. It's the only one. It's something to do with the chipset. I don't know. This is the SoundPeats Mini. This is how it would perform in a kids climbing area with lots of ambient noise, music, some adult chatter, not as much as there was earlier, and then quite a bit of kids noise from trying to get to the top of these big climbing things. The SoundPeats Mini has got this Elevoc plus AI technology built into it. Elevoc released their own earbuds, the Clear, which we tested previously in other mic tests. You find somewhere and maybe I'll add it into this overall test. They have both the hardware and the software elements. This has the software element, and generally I found them to be pretty good for in earbuds. But yeah, let's see how it performs in this blanket test of every earbud I could fit into my little pack.
SoundPeats T3 has not really been quite as well received as some of their other models. I found the mic to be quite boomy. Your voice comes through almost distorted and very loud and bassy. We've had a few cars go past, and whilst the weather isn't quite as bad as it was earlier, just as a train goes past, there's a tiny little bit of wind, and I would expect that to be reflected in the test for SoundPeats of that. Enjoy the train. That's the SoundPeats T3. Train test again for the SoundPeats T3. Very similar sort of environment, very noisy. It's a kids climbing area. There's some adult chatter, quite loud background music, and there's kids making as much noise as they possibly can as they try and get to the top of these big climbing things. Time for SoundPeats' take on the traditional semi-in-ear style earbud, the Air 3. This release was a proper AirPod killer. It performs really well all across the board, pretty much in every aspect, and I'm expecting the mic performance to be no different. That's the SoundPeats Air 3. For the Air 3, SoundPeats had the True Air 2. These were the original AirPod killer, and I expected that the mic performance would be better on this model because of the longer stems. As it turned out, time once again proved me wrong, and the newer model actually performed better. But it was a while since I did the test, so I'll be interested to hear how they sound once again. Another one of my favorites. This is the semi-in-ear SoundPeats Air 3, very similar to the SoundPeats True Air 2. However, they have this tiny little case, which is actually really difficult to get the buds out of, my one complaint. But it is absolutely tiny. I mean, look at that. It's smaller than my glasses. And, well, that's not saying much. The tests I'm doing have all been in a indoor environment with a lot of background noise, lots of adult chatter, lots of kids cheering, lots of background music as well. I'm guessing it's around sort of 65 to 85 dBA. I've tried to make all of these tests around 30 seconds to a minute, so it gives a true reflection of how they perform. It's the Air 3, shorter stem than the True Air 2. I really like them. The best AirPod equivalent on the market for the price. So let's see how the mic performs. And slightly lazy, you'll have to bear with me, because indoors the mic quality is almost identical between the SoundPeats Air 3 and the True Air 2. Air 3 is slightly better. I really can't be bothered to charge up my True Air 2, so you're stuck with this. But there's very little difference, as I said. And I think you heard from the outdoor performance that it's good bang for buck. But this is what they would sound like in an indoor environment where you have no noise around you whatsoever. As I said, very little difference in technology between the Air 3 and the True Air 2 Plus. So this is a joint test with reasonable amount of ambient sound for the two of them. As with all the other tests, this is similar to a very busy office or being in a queue in a shop or shopping center, something like that. So you're going to hear a little bit of someone else's voice
seeping through, but hopefully it will be acceptable for you. Certainly at the price point, I think is very good. Where yes, you do have some voices coming through, but they're nullified, and your own voice is amplified very well by the voice mic. There's once again the SoundPeats Air 3 / True Air 2 Plus.
One of the strangest looking, although from memory, one of the best performing TWS, and it's another stem base, is the Tautronic Sound Liberty 80. What's interesting about this model is that it features the Elevoc Voc Plus AI noise reduction. It was actually the first model which I reviewed, which had this AI algorithm built into it, and if I remember correctly, performs really well in all sorts of different conditions. Your voice comes through quite clear. The background noises are nullified really well. It's just this cyan and purple color scheme, which I just can't get over. And they don't stay particularly well in the ears either. But in terms of the mic performance, I really can't complain. And I'll be interested to listen back and see how they perform now in 2021 compared with 2020 when I purchased them.
Okay, it's a Tautronic Sound Liberty 80 with no background noise whatsoever. This is how it would sound in a very quiet office where you're working from home, or if you're in a meeting room doing a presentation. Sound Liberty 80. They're unwieldy, they're ugly, but they seem to perform really well on calls. This is the Tautronic Sound Liberty 80 in a very noisy environment. Let's see how they perform. Okay, testing the Onyx Ace Pro in a external environment on a main road with a reasonable amount of traffic going past. It's a bank holiday weekend, so it's probably a little bit less than usual, but we still had quite a few cars coming past. There's a pub across the road, there's people outside having a drink, the odd pedestrian coming past in the intersection, and then there's quite a few cars coming past right now actually, so it's probably quite a stringent test. But the mic performance, which apparently is CVC 8, it's using the Qualcomm chipset. I wasn't expecting actually to put them through such a stringent test, but it seems like with the amount of traffic which you had coming past, you're not far off the tests which I originally did on the 27 TWS all the way back at the end of 2021. So this is maybe one that I'm going to add to the list, the rejuvenated final list of TWS mic tests. That is the Tronsmart Onyx Ace Pro, brand new release. Testing the mic on the Tronsmart Onyx Ace Pro, the sequel to the Onyx Ace. This is in an indoor environment with very little ambient sound, so it's what it would sound like in a very quiet room. Not a lot in the room right now, so you're probably going to hear a little bit of echo, but yeah, this is how it sounds in that normal environment. Okay, testing the Tronsmart Onyx Ace Pro call quality with a reasonable amount of ambient background sound. This is pretty similar to what it would be like in a reasonably busy office. They're using CVC noise reduction, which is a feature inherent with the Qualcomm-based chip buds, which is a lot of the buds on the market today. Anything with QCY T13 or 3020 is going to have that CVC 8 noise reduction, which works with the dual mic array, or quad mic array as the vendors like to call it. 2 mics in each, one ambient mic, one voice mic. Works with that in a reasonable way. It's a varying degrees of efficacy and usually actually not particularly good compared with proprietary methods of trying to reduce ambient sound and amplify your own voice. So I'm interested to hear how the Onyx Ace, which the originals performed pretty well, but that was 2 years ago when they were released. Interested to hear how the new ones sound in comparison with the rest of the semi-in earbuds on the market today, notably the SoundPeats H3 and the one more Comfobuds 2.
It's another semi-in earbud, and it's another from One More, the One More Comfobuds 2, where One More have differentiated themselves, and hence the name Comfobuds, is rather than having a plastic bit which goes in your ear, it's got a kind of silicone flap. I'm not really sure what the material is, but it doesn't go right inside your ear canal. It just kind of sits against your concha, and it is really comfortable, I've got to say. I was a little bit disappointed by the audio quality on this model. I haven't got around to publishing the review yet on Edifier because I'm lazy. But the mic performance was pretty good if I remember rightly. These are also Aero based, just like the CC2 and some of the others which we've reviewed today, which listed in the majority of my reviews where it's either registered on the FCC listing or communication which I've had with the vendor directly.
Testing the indoor mic performance of the One More Comfobuds 2. On the outdoor test, they performed reasonably well, conveying your voice, so I'm expecting in this silent environment for them to perform equally as well. It's One More Comfobuds 2. One More Comfobuds 2, again, this time with simulated background noise to portray what they would sound like in a busy office, coffee shop, or school environment. It is the One More Comfobuds 2.
Time to test the mic performance on the Sony Mix. And my goodness, if they can cope with the wind, which has just gone through the city, then they're pretty impressive. I'm on a fairly busy road, although it's a little bit quiet. The wind is pretty strong to the point stuff is being blown around. And I can definitely feel it going through my ears. They're designed so that you can hear what's going on around you really well. There's a lot of cars going past right now. I'm not sure if you can see there in the background. A pretty testing environment really for any set of earbuds. Let's see how the Ape Sonic Mist performs.
Testing the mic in an indoor environment for the Ape Sonic Mist. This is in absolute silence, nothing going on in the scene. So we're testing for clarity and tone in your voice. Ape Sonic Mist. Testing the Ape Sonic Mist with a fair bit of ambient noise going on in an indoor environment, similar to what you would expect in a noisy office block or the queue in a shop. That is the Ape Sonic Mist.
Is another stem-based semi-in-ear, the Halo MeloBuds, which look very similar to the FIIL CC2. And whilst the stem length is pretty similar, the construction is very different. These are quite plasticky, whereas the FIIL are a more metallic feel. The MeloBuds are real budget buds, even though they're using the Qualcomm chip and CVC noise reduction. CVC can be applied non-uniformly across different sets of earbuds which support it. It's just one element. It's also the mics which are used and how the mic array is positioned, etc. They're available for something like £20 off AliExpress. They've been out a little while as well, so I'm not expecting them to perform miracles here. If I remember rightly, on the first test when I reviewed them back something like a year ago, they performed adequately, but there's very little in the way of noise reduction. Next up is the rather awkward looking and certainly awkward to use FIIL CC2. FIIL have got a rich reputation in the TWS market. They pretty much exclusively use the Aurora chip. And what I find with the Aurora based buds is that your voice starts to thin out quite a bit. Although with this model, I don't think the voice mic could be any closer to your mouth because they're so elongated. But it's very popular, has a lot of fans out there. Certainly on Edifier, got some very good reviews. So I'm interested to hear how they perform. It's something like a year on since I purchased these.
So there you have it, the call quality test is updated for the first half of 2022 and there were no major surprises. The Sony LinkBuds, one of the newer releases to the market, have completely outshone Sony's flagship model, the 1000XM4, and with the OnePlus Buds Pro and Edifier Neobuds Pro, two of the other more recent releases to the market, it really is reflective that vendors have anticipated that users are looking for better call quality from their TWS and have responded accordingly. And that massive advantage that the Elevoc Clear had back when we did those tests at the end of 2021 seems to have eroded, and considering that was their unique selling point, it begs the question as to whether they remain a viable option, especially at that price point. And it also dispelled that myth that the more money that you spend on the buds, the better performance that you get across the board. We saw some great budget performers, and some doing really well indoors but not so well outdoors, and some doing really well outdoors and not so well indoors. So again, it comes back to the use case. What do you actually need the buds for? Do you need to spend out on something that compresses the hell out of your ambient sound when you're only ever going to use the buds in your living room? Kudos again to the likes of QCY, SoundPEATS, One More and Tronsmart for still managing to implement decent call quality in relatively low budget buds, showing that it's not impossible to have decent all-rounders at a respectable price. And who'd have thought the Tautronic Sound Liberty 80? They're an acquired taste, but no one can deny they perform really well on calls. Their old buds have been on the market for well over a year now, but still they've stood the test of time. time. So hopefully you enjoyed it and you found it worthwhile. No doubt I'll be back doing another one of these tests in 6 months time. If there's any models that I left off, please feel free to get in contact with me and I'll add them onto the next one. Check out Kenneth Tanaka's mic test as well, because he's done something very similar and there's not that much crossover between mine and his, and it's always good to get a cross section of reviews. So thanks again for sticking it out. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe buttons for updates on more unboxings, reviews, ANC tests, mic tests, etc. This is ReganCipher signing off.